Hello. So as we are done with the primary research last day, we'll be discussing about the secondary research and rest of the part of the chapter today. So here we are with the secondary research. So basically, when you are talking about secondary research, we know that primary research is gathering the data, which is like gathering the raw data or gathering data which does not exist. Yeah. Primary research is gathering the first-hand data, collecting and gathering first-hand data, maybe directly from the customers, yeah, or the or you know like subject-oriented people, yeah. Whereas if you talk about the secondary research is actually gathering data that already exists, right? Secondary research is just Googling about something, for an example, as I've told you earlier, yeah, the person, working in a lab, doing the research, doing the research on coronavirus, is actually getting the primary research. I mean, he's finding out the data, he's figuring out the data himself. And secondary research is for those people like me, right? We are just based on articles, based on reports, based on Google data, or any kind of data available in the magazine, newspapers, or the news briefing, or any kind of documentary. We are having a discussion. That's the second. We are using the secondary data to conduct the discussion. So basically, secondary research is the data which already exists within a business. Yeah. It is also known as the desk research. So secondary research is widely known as the desk research. Yeah. So as we have discussed the methods of the primary research the other day, today we are likely to see the secondary research and rest of the part of the chapter. So secondary research methods are basically, it could be sources of the government. I mean, the census report that the government publishes. For an example, it could be like the population of Narayanganj, the population of Glasgow, the population of Manchester, right? So that can be a government census, right? The survey that the government conducted, yeah, on a primary basis becomes the the secondary data for us when we are trying to use it, because it is available, it is widely available, and we did not collect the data on a raw basis. It could be trade publications by different kind of different trade organizations. It could be market reports. It could be internet sources such as Google, any kind of data you find on Facebook Insights, maybe reports on your YouTube channel, yeah, or the website surveys. It could be the website survey or internet survey is the primary research. Don't mix this up. But if you're collecting the data from any kind of website, yeah, any kind of website providing article or any other organization who conducted the research, then it becomes a secondary research data. The government sources, actually, if you talk about the Office of National Statistics, ONS, in the UK, they are actually, the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, conducts census and surveys all around the country, especially on demographic, yeah. They try to find out what are the age of the average people living in the UK, how many females and males are living within the population, the percentage shared between the two genders, basically the percentage shared by the percentage shared according to the age of the entire population, and things like that. So basically, ONS is actually very useful with demographic information and data on the market or industry that the business is in. Information actually can be used to make decisions about expanding overseas, overseas, for example, right? You could gather a number of research data from the government sources and the ONS itself, yeah. Then the secondary research could also include the trade publications. So these are actually trade journals, and they actually cater a very specialist market. For an example, you could take the BKMEA, logbook, where you find the directory, where you find data of all the suppliers within the knitwear industry in Bangladesh. Even you can talk about the buyers. You're gonna find the notion of this, all this kind of related people. So that basically you can find out how many registered knitwears are there. How many? What is the scale of the supplier? What are their sizes? How many? What are each one of their profile and things like that. So that's kind of a directory journal for you, right? So information on competitors' activities such as promotions, new specific to the industry. Business. It actually helps the small businesses to stay in touch with the trends in the market. So because the small businesses are not running their own market research, so they can depend on the secondary research data to understand the trend and changes in the market structure. So that's one thing can be done. Secondary research may also include market reports. Organizations such as Mintel, they actually do these reports, and trends are there to do that, right? So Mintel has a global team of trend analysts constantly assessing change in culture, economy, and society. So they are responsible, and they actually do that. Actually, it's not saying responsible, but they do this. They assess and analyze the changes in the society, the changes in the consumer markets, the changes in economy of a country. So these reports actually cost £1,000 to £1,000 to £3,000. This data can be used from the data can be used from this report actually to create campaigns. If you want to be the first in the marketplace, if you want to exploit new markets, if you want to find new markets, if you want to understand the demographics within a market, this actually can help you to operate your campaigns, run advertisements, and conduct. Further, it can also be supportive for primary market research, right? If a business actually cannot afford in time and labor to carry out hundreds of hours in research, it may actually buy a Mintel report. It actually gives you access to wider range of report on the website as well. So secondary research, the biggest and the very popular common kind of secondary research could be the internet itself. So actually Google is the Google is the biggest source, right? Anything happens, you search Google, right? So the engine itself is one of the biggest source of the secondary research. So the internet is an ideal way to research competitor websites, articles, publications, annual accounts, etc., right? It is actually very useful to quickly gaining industry information. Social networks, blogs, and other forms of the social media have emerged as forms where consumers discuss their likes and dislikes, and consumers can be actually particularly vocal about the company's and products itself. So that can be another thing. Internet sources could be widely used for that, right? Let's talk about the qualitative research. Now we have discussed the qualitative and quantitative research earlier. As I've told you that qualitative research is any data that is based on or that we take we consider them to be opinions. You could say these are actually like answers based on the quality, attitude, belief, things like that. So it's mostly like to make it short, qualitative research data is basically based on opinion. So it actually seeks to gather and explore feelings, thoughts about a product, that how the consumer feels. Is the product good or is the product bad? Actually today I got a call. I was actually interviewed over the telephone by the Asian Paints. Back in 2018, I painted my walls, the walls of my bedroom, and things like that. So I asked their help. I got paints from them and things like that, and they painted my walls and things. So basically, what happened today? They gave me a call. They were trying to do a market research. They were asking me questions that, are you satisfied with the with the painting and everything. I said, well, how would I rate that? And they told me, like, you could say it's good, it's bad, it's average. I said, okay, it's average. And I was a little cheeky. So whatever. So, the things like that. So information actually, like, based on opinion, yeah, based on the feeling, how I feel. These are actually those data, like, which are qualitative, yeah. Information is gathered by the focus group discussion. So as we saw the video earlier, right, that there was a focus group discussion, and these, people could choose the range of options, and they could rate them. Yeah, they were provided with food to provide particular rating if the goods was actually, like, if the food was, like, some women told that the spaghetti was tomatoey. Somebody commented that it was too chocolatey and like food filling. So so considering these factors, focus group discussions can be actually, like, important when gathering qualitative data. It could be interviewing the customers as well. How they think about the product, just like the way Asian Paint thought about me, and, like, asked me if the product was right for me. Observation of the buyer behavior. Only family groups actually bought this watch, or things like that. How the buyers actually, like, behave to the product, right? So you might be selling toys, and you might be observing customers that when do they buy the toy? Do they only buy if they are only buying the toys when their kids are coming along, and when they're not on their own? That can be a kind of observation. So this can actually help the business to identify the moods of the buyer, that when do they buy the product, the decision behind the purchase, what actually influenced them to buy the product. For an example, lower maintenance cost influences us to buy Toyota. So that's kind of a decision behind the purchase of the product, and other invaluable data that we have, right? So that can be a part of the qualitative research. Whereas the quantitative research is involving numbers, numerics, and data which measures the response. So this is the data which is capable of measuring the responses from the respondent, yeah? So these data can be displayed on charts, graphs, statistics, and percentiles, yeah? So the questionnaire is actually written off in a number of respondent who actually buys this, right? For example, I could easily ask you, how many times a week do you go to the gym? So you could tell me, like, maybe 2 times. Some would say 4 times. Some would say none. Some would say once a week. So that gives me numeric data that out of the 20 people, 10 people goes to the gym for 2 times a week. 4 people goes to the gym for once a week. Yeah, 6 people goes to the gym for 3 times a week. Right, so I can actually scatter the data based on the numbers and numerics. Yeah, so that can be one thing. Quantitative research asks questions to a large sample, actually, to provide valid and useful data for the business. Limitations of market research, sample size, bias, and things like that. Now let's come to the point of sampling. Sampling is basically the process of choosing the right people to be a part of the research. Remember, the sampling actually represents the population you want to, the population of the total market, right? So, apnar total market to the of, like, say, like 1,000 people is the 1,000 people is your market size. Yeah, je apnar market size ache, like, total hoche je 1,000 units. Mane 1,000 people are buying your product, or 1,000 units are being sold every day, or 1,000 units are being sold a year. Right, so 1,000 units জন্য আপনি কতটুকু proportion of the population কে represent করবেন. So it's actually the amount of the amount of actually it's basically you're representing the whole population, yeah. You're representing the whole population, yeah. through a proportion of it, right? Through a percentile of it, smaller percentile of it. It's just like a small sample. So it is basically the process of choosing the right people to be the part of the research, and people who can actually represent. The size should be like that they can represent the entire population, right? For say like to represent a population of 100 to say like 1,000 people, yeah, considering 5 people is actually can be questioning, right? Which is not even 10% of it, right? So that's actually like questionable, right? So for an example, Whiskers is a pet food manufacturer. They would only want to sample pet owners in their research, right? So that can be the sample. So the size of the sample, when you're talking about the sample size, is the number of the people who are actually interviewed during the research. The sample size needs to be large enough that the data has statistical validity. So if you are choosing the wrong size, the wrong number of people in proportion to the entire population or the population that represents your market, yeah, you're not likely to get an appropriate research data. It can be useful for the business to make its decision, and the results will be biased. So what is being biased? When you're talking about bias is when the research findings cannot be trusted because of the way the research has been carried out, right? Maybe the interviewer was biased. I might be, as if I'm the interviewer, and if you think that I'm biased, I might be looking forward to like, I might be asking you the question, what's like, okay, I like the color red. Which car do you buy? Do you want a red car? Yeah. So if I'm leading the question, yeah, if I'm asking you the color of the car you're going to choose, and before that, if I give you the hint, it's the kind of a bias. It's likely to, get your answer out, the answer that I want. So it's likely to be a biased result. Biased questions are like, you really like shopping at the co-op, don't you? Yeah. So that's kind of, the answer I'm expecting. So I'm definitely going to expect a yes, like to shop, but we might not be shopping at the co-op, right? So cooperatives and things like that. So it might be like actually biased questions leads the answer, so you don't get the actual answer, and the results are actually not genuine, right? So that fails the entire market research. So how do we use ICT, or how does ICT support the market research? ICT supports the market research through websites. You might find you may find pops up, the pop-ups in the website that can be used to ask the customers about the products, right? Sometimes when you're using the websites, you do get pop-up ads. The same way you get pop-ups on the right bottom side of the screen on your laptop, yeah. And you find like they might be asking your age, your gender, maybe they're asking you that what color do you like, and things like that. So that kind of websites can be one way to survey, right? This may also be used to gather email addresses so that targeted customers can be surveyed. So if you purchase something from a website, or if you're visiting a website, they often ask you for your email address so that they can send you related emails later, right? Some sites actually have lots of useful quantitative data about the industry as well, right? Social networks, especially Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Facebook is way more popular in Bangladesh, as well as Instagram. So these are actually very, useful means of networks to gather data today. Yeah. However, sometimes it's questioned that if it's being properly used or not. Business databases. So on the other hand, the large amount of data that we collect, qualitative, quantitative market research data that we collect needs to be stored and needs to be maintained properly, right? So business databases, actually, if you talk about large supermarkets, how they actually installs their databases, they need to build up huge databases, right? These information actually can be used to target the customers, like what are they likely to buy. Yeah, so database is important part, and like saving this data, keeping this data recorded is an important part, which is actually helped by the IT and these softwares. Especially softwares actually can provide you with the data needed and actually can, kind of separate the data, find the data according to the dates, and help you with different kind of specialities. Right. So storing the data and having a good software to save your database is important. Yeah, because when it comes to database, a lot of things actually depends on the database. So the facilities might be like it should be user definable, which means having a function or meaning that that can be specified and varied by the user. File searching facility should be available for finding specified information from the file, such as identifying the client over £5,000 income, right? File sorting facility should be available. It should be showing calculation relative to the record. Yeah. For example, the surname, first name, address, town, age, occupation, income. This kind of data should be available. They might be, like providing, any kind of specialities as such, right? That what kind of data do they provide, and what are the kind of records do they have, right? So the advantages and disadvantages of secondary research could be that it is actually relatively easy. Secondary research is easy to be gathered. It is quick. It is cheap to collect, right? There are several sources and medias that you can use to access the secondary research. Historical data may be used while you're actually you're trying to find the trend according to the timeline. It can be used to carry out primary research as well, which will help to establish useful questions to be asked in the questionnaires. Disadvantages is that the data is not always a form of particular business would want, because it has collected it has been collected for another purpose. Adapting it to market, adapting it to it may actually take time, and it can be very expensive to implement and adopt it to the data. The data actually may not be really relevant at times, because this data, remember that secondary research data were used, were taken into consideration by other companies for their use, so it may not meet your relevant expectations, right? Some research papers found online and some data found online can be biased. Yeah.